What's the dumbest question a customer has asked you at work? Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for the support. A man came in for a blind internet date. We're a sports bar with 20 plus TVs. Guy walks in and asks if we have TVs. He sits down, waiting for his date to arrive. He looks over the drink menu and asks if we have wine. Yes, it's listed in the menu you just looked at, and you can see all the bottles behind the bar. A few moments later, his date arrives. We think about tipping her off until she also asks if we have TVs. She then proceeds to look over the drink menu and ask if we have wine. They seemed like they had a good time. Next story. Can I have a martini on the rocks up? So rocks or no? Both. So ice? No ice, but with rocks. So what does your martini look like when you usually order it? It comes in a martini glass. Okay. Can I have this in an actual glass with ice? Yes, that one. With ice? Yes. Okay. Scene. Next story. Had a surreal two-top tonight. Delivered 2 glasses of ice water to start. He looked at me and said, "What is this?" I responded by saying, "These are glasses of water for you." He responded by mentioning, "We don't come to restaurants like this. Could we have Coca-Cola instead?" I smiled and said that I would bring him and his wife nice big glasses of Coca-Cola. At the end, his bill was $100.85. He gave me a $100 bill and told me to keep the change. I pointed out that he owed me 85 cents, and he was genuinely embarrassed. We laughed together, and I shook his hand. His wife coughed up $1. Sigh. Bye. Next story. Once when I was a barista, this woman, who for the record sounded like a regular affluent businesswoman, ordered an oat milk latte in fluent English, asked me what milk tastes like. I thought maybe I misheard her, but nope. She repeated the question, "What does milk taste like?" So I'm thinking maybe she's vegan and curious about whole milk compared to 2% or some crap, but when I said those words, she appeared very confused. So I gently went with, it tastes like oat milk, but richer, more fatty. What does oat milk taste like? She asks, holding the oat milk latte I had just handed her. I just pointed at the cup. She damn sips it, goes, "Oh, I like that. I think I'll keep mine the way it is, thanks," and walks away. Years later, I still wonder if she was having some sort of psychic break or fully just an alien in human skin. Next story. We have fish dishes that literally say sautéed or baked in the name, and I'll get asked, "Ooh, tell me how the sautéed fish is prepared." Sir, you just answered your own question. Next story. Can you do anything about all these flies? I can move you to a table inside. We want to stay on the patio. Okay, I can't do anything about the flies out here. It's fine. Next story. Recently, with the whole cyclospora outbreak, is your lettuce safe or is it contaminated? Multiple people. I need 2 hands to count how many people have asked me this. At first, I responded with a question and asked if they actually thought we would knowingly serve contaminated lettuce. Then, late last week, it was busy and I was sleep deprived, and what came out instead was, "Yup, the lettuce is part of our new lunch special. Eat here, get skinny. You'll crap your brains out for a few weeks, but hey, you can lose those last 10 to 15 pounds. Hospital bill, if applicable, is not included." The first time I said it, the woman's husband burst out laughing and told her, "That's what you get for asking a stupid question." I love working for private owners. That crap would get my ass fired in the corporate world. Next story. I had a lady complain and actually make a serious scene to the point that I threw her out because a bird had pooped on the building. She was not an addict or anything weird, more a Karen. Next story. What is squid? Not how it's prepared, not what sauce it's served with, just straight up, what is the animal? I explained it similar to octopus with more and finer tentacles. I even did hand motion. Next story. I worked in a beer and wine only bar and approached my table after their first round, asking if they'd like another glass or bottle of wine. The man says, "What kind of cocktails do you have?" And I reply, "We actually just have beer and wine." He proceeds to explain to me what a cocktail is. A cocktail is when you take a liquor like vodka or gin and mix it with something like juice, he tells me. He was on a date. Maybe not a first date, but early enough in the relationship. The woman and I are locking eyes as he explains to me, an adult woman working in a wine bar, what a cocktail is. She interrupts him with, "Yeah, she knows what a cocktail is. They only have beer and wine here, idiot." She didn't say idiot, but it was implied. Also, I always want to be a smart A when people ask, "Do you have a bathroom here?" Or, "Do you know where the bathroom is?" Next story. I've been in this industry a long time, but my most recent dumb customer story was from last night. My bar lost power, so obviously we had to close down. Explained to all the customers who were in there that they had to leave because the power wasn't coming back on. One guy asked if he could use the bathroom before he left. I told him of course. He comes out and says, "It's dark in there. There's no light." I couldn't even respond. I just stared at him flabbergasted. Next story. Will I like the insert whatever menu item? Ma'am, where is your caretaker? And don't get me wrong, if you just aren't familiar and tell me you're allergic to mollusks, I'll steer you away from the clam chowder. A burger would be nice. If you're a pescatarian, you'd probably prefer the filet of sole versus filet mignon. Whatever. But I don't have the first effing notion whether you'd like the roasted broccoli. Next story. When a customer comes in and asks, "What's the weather like on the patio?" I want to say something smart like, "About the same as what it was when you walked from your car into our bar," but instead, I usually just say, "It's nice." I swear I get that question at least once a summer. Next story. I got, "What's the difference between the iced tea and the lemonade?" "Well, one is an iced tea and the other one is a lemonade." She said, "Oh, that makes sense." Next story. I liked this one. One day last week around 10 a.m., we were getting set up and didn't have the door locked. A lady popped her head in. "Your sign says you open at 11 o'clock. What time do you open?" Next story. I got, "So I just search restaurant name menu. It will show me what I can order?" And, "I don't understand what you're saying. What is an ounce?" In the same day. Next story. Just recently, one of my regulars was paying his bill, and he was like, "You all act so happy at the end. Are you ready to go home?" I told him, "Yeah, just like when he leaves work. Isn't he happy?" Next story. These weren't from a customer, but a fellow server. Angela's pouring a glass of water. The customer says, "Can I get one without ice?" Angela looks at me and says, with complete sincerity, "Should I strain the ice out?" We had a breakfast combo plate which included potatoes. Customer orders one, and Angela asks, "That come with sweet potato fries, right?" We didn't have sweet potatoes. Or a fryer. She had been there 2 months at this point. Next story. Customer orders sweet iced tea with no sugar. I ask, "Would you like Equal or Splenda?" "What's the difference?" "One is aspartame, the other is sucralose." "I don't know what that means." "Then you don't have a preference." I brought her Splenda. Was a fast casual place which was mostly counter service with occasional light table service. I was the cashier and also brought out their tray if able to sort of thing. So, not exactly waitressing, but I hope it counts for the purposes of this thread. Next story. I had a good one tonight. She ordered a short rib with mashed potatoes. The short rib is served on top of the mash. She told me as the food was delivered, she cannot eat dairy, so we need to remake the plate. She assumed the mash would be served on a separate plate. Why? Damn. Tell me your dietary restrictions and I will accommodate you, you goddamn moron. Next story. I want XYZ omelet with the eggs over medium. I explain how an omelet works and she goes, "Oh, okay, so I'll still get that, just make it with over medium eggs." I was baffled. Her date was baffled. She was confident. I steered her towards a meal that you could have with over medium eggs. Next story. What's a super salad? How many fries are in the side of fries? Do you have a menu with pictures of the food on it? This was at a very upscale place, and this couple was on a date. The lady, upon hearing this question, called him an expletive and said that she knew he was illiterate. I just told them I'd give them a minute and be right back. Next story. How many pancakes come in the single pancake? Will you take the soup back to the kitchen and pick out all the meatballs and bring it back? She was mad her vegetarian soup had chickpea meatballs. Customer scans menu for a solid 10 minutes. In the pasta section, there are 6 options, one of which is bolognese. Do you have, like, a pasta with a marinara meat sauce? Why don't you chill your red wine? You're fully booked with reservations? What if we just walk in? Next story. Does the bacon burger have bacon on it? I literally asked him, "Are you stupid?" I profusely apologized, and luckily, I was the manager on duty, so I didn't lose my job. But yeah, it was a stupid damn question. Next story. What do you recommend? Meatballs? I don't eat pork. Okay, etc. And then she orders a pepperoni pizza. You know what, lady? No problem coming out. Next story. On our menu, we have shrimp cocktail listed with 2 prices. What's the difference between the 2 shrimp cocktails? One is a half dozen, and one is a full dozen. Yeah, but how many pieces? Spoken like I'm the idiot. 6 and 12. How does a normal, fully grown, English-speaking American man not know what a dozen means? These people walk among us. Next story. Back in the 1970s, there was a toy store chain called Toys. They were everywhere. I was in my late teens, and it was a low-paying but enjoyable job. During the Christmas season, we were open until midnight, and the weirdos all seemed to remember their shopping needs at Helen PM. The uniform was either a long white and orange smock or a bright orange vest, with a large, sewn-on picture of the company mascot, a family of cartoon giraffes, on the back. It's near midnight. I'm 18 years old, wearing this ridiculous vest, mopping the floor in a toy store, and this guy walks in and, with a straight face, begins the conversation with, "Do you work here?" I couldn't resist and said, "No," without looking up. I expected him to balk, but he apologized and went looking for someone else. Next story. Worked in a craft store. We made announcements every 10 minutes for like 45 minutes before we closed. The last 3 tell you that you have to come to the register because we close them. The amount of dumbass people who would listen to all of them, then be wandering the aisles well after close. They'd throw the biggest fit when we explained that the announcement was in fact for them, not for everyone else. No clue why they thought they were exempt, but they weren't. They'd be escorted out with no sale. Next story. Look at this. I can't believe you'd serve me this. Why would you serve me this? I replied concerned. I'm sorry, I don't see anything wrong with your steak. He replied, these grill marks. Don't you know charred meat is a carcinogen? What do you mean I can't bring my emotional support animal in? Dog has just bit someone else in line to get into the bar. What do you mean I can't come in? My friend's husband is a member. Doesn't that mean anything? When I worked at a members club, look, we give him wine at home, so why can't you give my child a glass of wine? He's going to feel left out, and that's your fault. Mimi's Cafe. Mom who doesn't realize she is a terrible mother. I was told I could bring in my own tequila by your manager, me. Do you want to call your manager, me, up and get you fired? Not to me, but to his friends. Oh, look, everyone. I brought the help. Why are you looking at me like that? From a guy who invited his friends out during the first open time during COVID. I'm sure if I really thought about it, I could remember more, but these were the ones that sprang to mind first. Next story. I once worked at a nice hotel place that clearly had the word burger in its name. If I had $1 for every time someone walked in and asked if we sold burgers, I could retire comfortably. Next story. Served a family and the probably 18-year-old daughter asked me what the ravioli was. I started explaining the dish and she goes, "No, what is ravioli?" And I started explaining what ravioli is and her dad starts helping and she's like, "Oh, those things. I love those." Next story. This is slightly different, but when people seat themselves and ask if their server is coming or if they can get a menu, well, if you checked in with the host instead of seating yourself, you would already have both. Next story. Oh, literally during World Cup final. Is the reason vodka and Red Bull tastes different than vodka and soda because there's more vodka in vodka and Red Bull? I carded him again just to be safe. Next story. There's 2. 1. Guest asked if there was meat in the vegetarian chili. I said no, and they responded, "So how is that vegetarian?" 2. White trashy guest that did some retaining wall work for the owner and accepted payment in gift cards ordered a burger. When I asked how he wanted it done, his response was, normal. So I clarified, okay, so pink or no? He responds, normal, like at damn Burger King. I know 2 isn't a question he asked me, but I still hate that guy 15 years later. Next story. A mom whose kid had a shellfish allergy asked me if I think the kid would be safe to eat the leftover mac after she'd eaten the lobster. Told her I wouldn't do it. But also like, what the heck? That's your kid. Also had an older gentleman who ordered a bottle of wine question me when he received his check, asking me how the restaurant could live with themselves charging $45 for a $12 bottle of wine. Had to send a manager over because, are you so serious? Next story. I was asked if tagliatelle was pasta by 2 people at one table. This year by a group of young adults, none of whom otherwise showed any aversion to being on their phones during the meal. Next story. The restaurant was on the lake. The lake had geese. Some random foreigner in town on business demanded we catch one, kill it, cook it, and serve it to him. Next story. An entire table of 8 people, each in sequence, asking me what the salad dressings are, after each one was told what they were. Super salad. Salad. What kind of dressings do you have? Italian, ranch, blue cheese, honey mustard, creamy Italian, Caesar. Repeat 7 times. Next story. My grandmother once asked, what comes with the steak and eggs? The server stuttered out, steak and eggs? She meant what are the sides? but it became a family joke for decades when someone asked something painfully obvious. Next story. I work at a Mexican restaurant. Couple ordered tacos and margs. After the meal, the guy asks me, "So what kind of food is this? Italian?" Dead serious. Another lady asked me if the green stuff she got in a bowl with her chips was wasabi. Next story. Just last night, I had a lady go full-out mega Karen on me because I told her kids weren't allowed at the bar and they needed to see the hosts for a table. Damn me for answering your questions truthfully, I guess. Next story. Can I have a non-alcoholic Shirley Temple? And straight-faced. Do you guys serve Pinot Grigio? His date just put her head in her hands and wouldn't look at me the rest of the date. Next story. If I had $1 for every guest that swore they couldn't have mayo because of a dairy allergy, I swear. In particular, had a lady with a dairy allergy order our salmon. Ours comes with potato salad. We made sure to cook it in oil, clean the flat top, etc. Server comes back after delivery and says this woman is irate that it was served with the potato salad, that we didn't care about her allergy. As the MODI go over and was like, "Hey, I heard we didn't like the potato salad. I know you have a dairy allergy. Was there something wrong?" Her husband says she can't have mayo because of her dairy allergy. So I said, "Mayo is egg-based, and our potato salad doesn't use any milk in the recipe, but if she doesn't like it, I'll be happy to get something else." All smiles and such. "Yes, but she has a dairy allergy." I just said, "Okay, let me know what else you'd like instead, ma'am." She ordered our asparagus, which comes with cheese and pesto only, so it was plain for her, and sent it back because it had no flavor. Next story. I had a table of 5 one very busy Friday night. I had a bunch of other tables and was still getting back into serving part-time and still very new to this restaurant. 4 people sit down, waiting on the 5th, get all their drinks, and the 5th person shows up. I asked them if they had any questions while they were reviewing the menu. Important to note that the restaurant is higher end. The 5th man who showed up last looks me dead in the face and asks me what cheddar cheese tastes like. No one else at the table said anything. I swear it was their first day on Earth. It was like my brain hit factory reset because how do you describe cheddar cheese? Next story. Line cook here, but I like to commiserate with my FOH brethren in between rushes. Some of the funnier things I've heard from exasperated servers were, "Do you guys have a bathroom?" And my favorite, "How would you like that burger cooked?" What do you mean? Well done, medium well, etc.? What does that mean? Basically just different levels of pink. Is that safe? I mean, we're offering it. I've also been asked to cook a steak to medium rare, but no pink. I sent them a hockey puck, and they loved it. Next story. We had a patio. You walked through it to get to the host desk. This day was a very sunny and warm July day. The hostess asked if they wanted to sit inside or on the patio while I was walking by. The dude asked how the weather was on the patio. I stopped dead in my tracks with a tray of dishes and said, "About the same as when you walked in." This happened a couple times a year, and it blew my mind every time. Next story. I work at a steakhouse. We do lamb chops seasonally. Someone, I crap you not, asked me what part of the cow lamb chops come from. I said, "Ma'am, they come from lambs, not cows." She said, "Is that still in the beef family?" I have never walked away from a table so quick. Next story. Not me, but my coworker. We had a crab and lobster roll on the menu. This girl goes, "What's the difference?" He says, "Well, one is king crab and one is Atlantic lobster." And this poor girl goes, "Oh, okay. And what's a crab?" Cracks me up every time I tell this story. Next story. How do I know what is on each taco? Well, sir, if you look at the name of each dish, there's a description of it right below. I'm actually kind of proud of how I handled that because internally I was just like, huh? Next story. When customers come in from outside, ask for the patio, and then ask how the weather is right now. Like, you know better than me, you just came from outside. Next story. One day I was bartending, and a serve comes up. The guy at 17 says he wants a dirty mojito. I was unfamiliar, so I told him to get an idea of what that meant. He returns a moment later. He says it's a mojito with olive juice. It's not. I looked it up. It's just a mojito made with dark rum. But at this point, I need clarification. I tell the server that sounds like the worst drink I've ever heard of, and to make sure that's what he wants. The server comes back a second later. He got mad and said to make him a regular mojito, so I make him one and send it out. A little while later, the server comes back. He wants another one, and he said to tell you that's the best mojito he's ever had. And I'm like, yeah, no crap. That's probably because it doesn't have olive juice in it. Next story. Can I get a Caesar salad but with ranch dressing on the side? So, romaine lettuce with croutons, Parmesan cheese and ranch dressing? No, I want the Caesar salad, but with ranch dressing on the side, and add some tomato and cucumber. Can I get a cup of coffee with half regular coffee and half decaf? Douchebag then drinks 6+ cups of this. How about drink 3 cups of regular coffee and then follow it up with decaf, you damn idiot? Making me carry 2 coffee pots to the table for this dumb crap. Next story. We serve a whole baked chicken, and a customer complained there were too many bones in it, and if she could get a new one with less bones. And I had to explain that all the chickens would have the same amount of bones, like how her and myself have the same amount of bones. And she just kept staring at me. It totally didn't register, so I started offering chicken breast or other options, but 23 years at the same place, and that was the dumbest question ever. Next story. I have 2. First, a patron came up to me at the bar, with the beer pulls and displays of our beer selections in bottles and cans, and asked me in all seriousness, "Do you serve beer here?" Second was at an outdoor festival where all the beer was served in clear plastic cups. A very old lady ordered a Guinness and a Miller Lite. I poured the beers and brought them to her. She thanked me and asked me, again in all seriousness, which is which? Next story. Can they buy a bottle of our house wine? They loved it. Literally thought we produced it. We have 12 big from different wineries, countries. What makes it funnier? I live in the Caribbean and work in fine dining. They were from the States. Very nice people, but really, how did you get to this age and find a spouse that thought the same way? How has no one else ever explained this to you, as I am assuming they've asked this question before? Next story. Wasn't a customer, but it was our youngest server. Server, can I get you a drink started? Customer, could I please have a screwdriver? Server, sure, no problem. Server proceeded to root around in the kitchen and actually goes to maintenance to get an actual screwdriver and brings it to the customer. Got a pretty big laugh, but she has to learn what the drink actually was because she was still confused. Next story. A couple came in, ordered a cheeseburger and milkshake, and after they were done with their meal, flagged me down to ask if there was dairy in the food. Granted, they appeared to be Middle Eastern, so maybe they assumed the milkshake was not made without milk somehow. But my guy, cheese is cheese no matter where you go. I just didn't know how to respond to that after I confirmed that there was dairy in the meal. Next story. Under the chicken and veal section of our menu, we use the abbreviation C and V to differentiate between the two. People always ask what the C and V stand for. I was painting a wall under the bar once a nice dark blue. A guy comes and asks me if I was painting it blue permanently. I had a guy come get an application and says to me, "Do I bring it back after I filled it out?" I said, "No, we'll come find you." Next story. I get asked what the difference is between the chicken Caesar salad and the chicken Caesar wrap. The wrap is made with a flour tortilla and the salad is not. Apparently, that's the wrong answer. The customer asks me the question again. I ask what they need me to explain. They get frustrated and call me stupid for not knowing the answer. I guess I still don't know what the correct answer is. Next story. Is the tomato soup really tomato? For real. I assume she was asking if it had chunks of tomatoes or if it was smooth, but what a dumb question. Also had a guest insist they were allergic to mayo and could not have any on their chicken salad sandwich, which we don't put any mayo on, as the salad is mayo-based. When I pointed it out, she said, "Oh, it is just a small allergy. I can have a little." Next story. The other day, I literally had a lady ask me if she could have her roasted chicken cooked medium well. I started laughing because in my mind she had to be joking, but she was dead serious. After telling her the chicken would be fully cooked to prevent salmonella, we figured out that what she meant to say was that she wanted it cooked well done. Next story. Do you accept EBT? No, we don't. Says that's fine and still proceeds to place an order, and then shows up with EBT card, then demands to speak to a manager because they were told we accept EBT and they want some sort of compensation for having to come down here. Well, I'm a manager and I answered your phone call and my GM was next to me, so. Next story. I work at a chocolate store in a tourist area. The questions I get asked always leave me confused. Does your milkshakes have egg in them? Do you have chocolate bars here? Ugh. I would be concerned if we didn't have chocolate bars in a chocolate store. I'm allergic to chocolate. Can I have your chocolate milkshake? I tell him, well, no. Next story. The number of time people actually thought the Chihuahua cheese on the menu comes from actual Chihuahua is very concerning. I've been dealing with this crap for 10 years now. I don't even laugh at this anymore because people are actually that dumb. Next story. Walking in, looking around for a minute, and then asking, "Where's breakfast?" Or, "Where's the food?" "The ingredients are in the kitchen, sir. You tell me what you want from the menu and then they cook it in the kitchen and I bring it to you. Next story. Person calling in a phone order. Okay, perfect. What can I get you? What do you sell? Like, what are our best sellers? No, like, what do you have on the menu? I Googled you, but it's too much to read. Can you just tell me what everything is? Next story. Walks past the host stand to the takeout counter. There's a sign that says, please wait to be seated. What should we do? One more. The medium and the large pizza both have 8 slices, so what's the difference? Next story. A man asked what kind of fish is the catfish and shrimp, but I also had a lady tell me she was vegan and then add cheese. And when I asked her about it, she said she was like, I'm vegan, not vegetarian. Next story. Customer orders martini. Me, chilling glass.
Oh, I don't want ice. Oh, no worries. I'm just chilling the glass. But I don't want ice in my martini.
And scene. Next story. What's the difference between the hand-cut fries and the hand-cut potato chips? I looked that grown man in the eye and said, there's no way to answer that without making you look like a dumbass. Next story. After explaining the entirety of our daily flatbread, even saying it's like a pizza, she hits me with, what is a flatbread anyway? Thought it was rhetorical, but she was dead serious. Next story. Walking in past the open sign and all other lit neon signs to a restaurant with employees walking around working. You guys open? Will always be the dumbest question to me. Next story. This is so innocent, but it's funny to me. Do you know where the restroom is? I know what they're asking, but like, yes, obviously I know where the restroom is. Next story. Does the corned beef hash have meat in it? Is the spicy turkey sandwich spicy? Also, I get grilled as the answer to how do you like your burger done all the time. Next story. So many fine options, but this might be it. Do you serve alcoholic drinks? I am behind a 20-seat bar, and there are literally hundreds of bottles behind me. Next story. Not asked at work, but I was investigated as part of a job, and the investigator asked my father, how long have you known your son? My dad. Since birth. Next story. Not me, but a coworker was asked years ago, and I actually heard the interaction and had to walk away for a minute because I was laughing so hard. Conversation went as this. What's in the pineapple raisin bran muffin? Coworker, after being answering question robot for several hours in a high customer time, didn't register this and responded, pineapple, raisins, and bran. Oh, okay, I'll take. Don't remember how many they took. It was at least 1. I've had so many. My wife the other day kept having to tell a guy who wanted the muffin with the chocolate drizzle that it was caramel. She described the muffin in more detail than you would want. And he said, yeah, that one sounds good, but with the chocolate drizzle. She kept saying it's caramel. He kept saying, yes, that chocolate one. We just sold him the muffin and he didn't come back and complain. So maybe he had words mixed up? Didn't sound high apparently and no accent, so no idea. Hopefully he liked it. Next story. When it's a party of 4 to 5 people and I've brought out their food stacked on my arms, most I can fit is 3 on my left arm, 1 on right, but I'm petite so they can't all be large plates. So with 4 people, 1 may be left behind if they're all big. And obviously with 5, I have to make a second trip. And while putting down the last plates I get, oh, we had another dinner. Well, seeing as how I only have 2 arms, and I haven't learned how to balance a plate on my head yet, that just means I probably have to go back to the kitchen to get it then, right? Right. And yes, I've fully said this to a few tables, but in a sarcastic, joking way to make them think I was being cute, but we all know I wasn't. Next story. Customer. Can I have a chalupa? Me. I'm sorry, we don't serve chalupas here, but I've ordered them before? I'm sorry, but we don't have any chalupas. Could it be something else you are thinking of? He proceeds to explain a tostada. It seems like you are describing a tostada. Is that what you would like? I pointed to the tostada plate. Those are chalupas. He looked at me like I was the most idiotic person in the world. Sir, this is a tostada. Is that what you would like? Yes. I want the chalupas. He literally rolled his eyes at me too. Like, dude, we're not a damn Taco Bell. And a tostada is nowhere even close to a chalupa, but okay. Next story. I had a customer order our chicken sandwich, so I asked if they wanted it grilled or fried. They proceeded to ask, what do you mean fried? Is it not steak? To which I informed them that no, the chicken sandwich is made out of chicken. Oh, well then I don't want it. They then proceeded to ask me about every single cut of steak on our menu. I work at a steakhouse, as well as some of our specials, where they couldn't wrap their head around the fact that you only got to pick one of the main courses for a single meal, not all 3, before ordering a plain grilled chicken breast. Next story. Do you have any steak? Yeah, we have many steak options. No, do you have a steak dinner? So we don't have any steak dinners, like no sirloins or anything, but we have lists all the steak options we have. Okay, can I get the steak salad but with no salad? I was actually speechless. They ended up buying 2 portions of shredded steak for an excessive amount of money, in my opinion, but that has stuck with me since I heard it. Next story. Just got my personal favorite a few weeks ago. I have a dairy allergy. Can you prepare the fettuccine alfredo dairy-free? Unfortunately, that sauce is made entirely of dairy. No, we cannot. I have a very expressive face, which I usually use to my advantage. I walked out of work hoping I had only made her feel like her request was silly instead of one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Next story. Guest looking at menu, points to the pasta section and asks, "What are these?" Pastas. They're pastas. Guest asking me how to eat anything. With your mouth? How else? Guest orders ceviche, asks why there is fish in it. What's the difference between salsa verde and roja? Well, one is green and the other? It's red. Next story. I'll have the number 59. I'm sorry, I don't understand. The 8-ounce filet, number 59. Ooh, that's the price of it, sir. Sure, 8-ounce filet. How would you like it prepared? I'll take a side of number 15 with it. You'd like the Brussels sprouts as well? Gotcha. But how would you like your steak prepared? Just normal. Next story. Is your shrimp locally caught? I live in Wisconsin. Our tiki patio is right on a lake, so I could kind of see if he asked about our fish. I told him he was welcome to jump in the lake and see if we have shrimp there. Got a huge tip from his buddies for calling him out. Next story. I managed restaurants in Waikiki for decades. I heard this question more than you would believe. So do you live here? No, I fly in on the red eye every night and arrive just in time for my shift. Next story. Does the hot dog come with a bun? Does the hamburger have meat in it? What is pepperoni? Does the combo meal come with a drink? I got this literally dozens of times a day doing fast food. Story 90. Today I ran food to another server's table. It went like this. Me. I have the classic Benedict? Lady. Takes it out of my hand. Oh, is this the crab?
No, it's the classic. Next story. One that has had me baffled since it occurred is when completing an order I asked if it was for eating in or to go, and they asked, "What's the difference?" Huh? Next story. Is there corn in the Cobb salad? I could tell they immediately realized how dumb that question was right after they asked it. Kind of felt bad for them. What's the strangest thing an employer has ever asked you to do? Next story. I was at a company picnic, and the district manager, weird title, we had one district, had a pedigree dog worth several tens of thousands of dollars, so he claimed. One of the top champions of Chinese-crested, hairless dogs. He handed the dog to me and said, "Carry her. If you drop her or she runs away, you're going to jail." This was in 1990, when the breed was super rare, and the manager already had 2 attempts to steal the dog from his house. So I had to carry this dog all day at the picnic. It had no leash. People asked if it was my dog, and I had to say, "No, it's Pat's dog." I couldn't do anything but sit and hold the dog for Pat for several hours of the company picnic. When Pat was leaving, he took the dog back. Dog was chill, not very exciting, and weirdly had a texture like warm graham cracker. Next story. I once spent a long evening into part of the night chasing Mick Jagger throughout LA for my job. We were working on DVDs or CDs, and the cover art needed a physical sign-off because his company said Mick had to sign off on everything personally. This was during the Bridges to Babylon era, so mid-90s, and not many people had cell phones. I sure didn't. I'd get to his hotel where his company sent me, only to find he'd left to a late dinner. Find a payphone to call his company. "Oh, he's at..." "Go there, he's expecting you." I'd drive there, go in, and speak to the concierge to find out he'd just left for a club or bar or something. Use the restaurant's phone or find another payphone. "Oh, he's at..." My boss caught up with me somewhere in the city, and we both caught up with Mr. Jagger back at his hotel sometime later that night. Next story. In high school, I worked at the one photo shop in our small town. We developed the photos for everyone. After one round of getting the animal rescue photos to develop, photos of abused and neglected animals, I told my boss I would do literally anything but that. So she put me on police photos, which nobody else would do. I was the one person who developed crime scene photos for the police in our town. Next story. I had to go to a nursery and rent a tree to have in our conference room for a new customer that ended up signing a contract. The customer was a celebrity, and the tree was their favorite kind of tree. We already knew that. That's why I needed to get one. The celebrity asked what was going to happen to the tree. The CEO didn't answer quickly enough, and celebrity stated that they wanted the tree. CEO agreed. I called the nursery and gave them a corporate card to cover the cost of tree. CEO asks me to have it shipped to celebrity's house.
This was impossible due to laws about vegetation crossing state lines. CEO told me to rent a small moving truck and transport the tree to celebrity's house. So, I rented a truck, took my work BFF with me, and took a road trip to celebrity's house. Celebrity and staff knew we were coming, so no problem getting through security. It was an outside tree, a rather large one, so I didn't get to go inside celebrity's house. Then we road tripped back and carried on with regular work days after. Next story. Working at a corporate in IT, HR flagged to everyone that someone who'd recently been sacked had emailed his boss and threatened to come to the office and commit violence. HR and the head of IT had a chat, and their big brains decided that the best idea was to send the largest men in IT down to reception to stop him if he tried. They chose me and a younger guy. Younger guy saw it as a chance to show off his gym muscles and act the hero. I refused and reminded them that there were barriers that needed a pass to get through and a whole security team downstairs. We're IT and not insured or paid to tackle potentially violent people. I said to the HR and my boss, just call the police and tell the security team. That's what they're there for. Also, how can you get past the barriers? He can just shout in the car park till the police arrive. Made absolutely no sense to me. And the fact that the HR rep and my boss hadn't thought the same truly astounded me. Next story. When I had just got my driver's license, one day when I had driven my mother's car to work, the owner of the restaurant I worked at asked me to deliver a catering order to a customer. I pulled up to this swank McMansion and opened the trunk for these guys to get the boxes out, and one of them reached down inside one of them and pulled a brick of substances out and walked away. The other guy handed me $100 tip and took the food. I was a mule, unbeknownst to me. I never said anything to the owner, and he never asked me to do that again. Next story. As a teenager, I worked for a small but growing IT company, pulling new cable and doing odd jobs. Every Friday was Beer Friday. It was my job to take the company credit card and van to the local liquor store and get a keg, sleeve of cups, and a number 10 can of peanuts. It'd take it back to the office and set it up wherever the office was expanding from new construction. Because quality was important, I made sure it was cold and not flat by testing a few cups. When the legal drinking age is 21 and you're 17 years old, this was a great gig. Ended up leaving to join the military, got my IT degree, and returned to that same company. Worked for them for another 19 years. Next story. I had a director ask me for a favor to give him a ride home. No problem. As we hit the highway, he tells me he has to stop by somewhere and makes me go into one of the shadiest neighborhoods, and we go into this apartment complex and had me sew in one of the buildings and asked me to wait for him. I waited for almost 2 hours. I called my boss to tell him where I was, and he tells me he'll call him. About half hour after, the director comes out of the building wearing a filthy tank top and smelling horribly and clearly super high. He gets in, gives me his address, and reminds the passenger door and passes out. When we get to his place, it take a few minutes to wake him up, and he gets out of my car and after closing the door gives me thanks. I replied, I know I work for you, but I'm not your damn driver. Next story. Company owner asked me to provide a security equipment recommendation to his private country club. I work in investigations, security for large companies. Met with a board member of the club to discuss concerns and tour the facility for a camera layout. No camera by the men's locker room entrance because members park their cars and leave with their girlfriends. Could be used in a divorce case to show they didn't go inside. No camera in public spaces. They throw an annual stag party with strippers and other entertainers. No camera in the ballroom because they play poker and the stakes get high enough to raise concerns with winnings. Agreed to 2 locations. Bag drop because of drive-up thefts from non-members and the entrance to the cooler because they lose cases of stakes regularly from employee theft. Sleaziest bunch of people I ever met, and they were all millionaires. Next story. I worked for a catering company. One night, while we were catering a wedding, the owner's wife came in totally frantic and told me I needed to go with her to her house to watch her kids. I was 16. I didn't even know what to say. She took me inside, handed me an infant, and left. Apparently there were other children there, but they were asleep? I had no clue how to care for an infant, where diapers might be, what to feed it. No internet back then, no cell phones. I was there for several hours with a screaming baby before her husband came home. I don't even remember how I got back to my car. I never spoke with either of those people before or after that weirdness. So weird. Next story. I had an interview to be a cocktail waitress when I was about 20. The gross old man interviewing me, who became my boss, asked if all the girls who applied would face the wall, and if your tits touch the wall before your nose, you're hired. And nobody thought that was a problem. Not exactly the Me Too era of late. Next story. Got a call from my boss at 6 p.m. asking me to buy some mouse traps to catch a chipmunk that got into the office as the last guy left for the day. I went to the office first and found the chipmunk. I was able to corral it and got it to run outside on its own. Next story. My dumbass boss at Value Village wanted me to tell this sweet little old lady that she smelled like pee. You could see from the bulge in her pants that she wore diapers. I told him to do it himself. He didn't. Next story. I worked as kitchen staff at a ski resort, and at 14, the hotel manager handed me keys to a shuttle bus with instructions to go to the airport and pick up a VIP and family. The airport was about 30 minutes away. All was good until my friend's much older sister brought out their bags, which I loaded into the van, and she asked where the driver was. I think it went downhill when she said, "But you are not old enough to drive." VIP with daughters my age in the van took the keys and drove while I provided instructions. I recall a very loud conversation between the VIP and hotel manager, but the manager never said a word to me. For the next 2 days, I was courtesy patrol, skiing with, and watching over his daughters. Next story. In the early 2000s, my boss asked me to get his wife's best friend pregnant. Just out of the blue, as we were arriving back at the shop after a workday, he nonchalantly posed the question as if it were nothing. I knew her kind of well, due to me being at the boss's house quite often. She was there visiting his wife at least 2 to 3 times a week. She'd always say hi and start small talk. Decent-looking woman, had a great job, worked in NYC, financially stable, seemed like a nice person too, but I politely declined. The scenario was just creepy in a way I can't describe. I left that job about 6 months after this event. Next story. I've been a body piercer for 21 plus years. I've done some crap for the company during my tenure. The one that gets the most, "What the heck?" from people, is when he asked me if I could fix his elevator. He lived in a 3rd-floor apartment that had this sketchy-ass elevator that would get stuck for all kinds of odd reasons, but he still insisted on using it. Something happened that neither him or the landlord could figure out, so he called me. I've never worked on an elevator before, or since, but I'm kind of handy when it comes to electrical and minor mechanical stuff, so I grab my tools and head over. About an hour later, and a run for parts later, I had it fixed, and he didn't have to wait however many weeks and pay the $500 minimum for the elevator repair people. I think he gave me a bottle of Jack for the work. Next story. Was a vet tech for years. Boss asked me to manually collect a semen sample from a bulldog. Told him he could fire me. I was going to my grave being able to say I never jacked off a dog. Next story. Show off my purple hair and tattoos. I worked for a newspaper group, of 7 newspapers, doing editing and design. I was senior editor over most of the group, but I had a boss, and she had second chance high school kids visiting. She didn't warn me. She walked up to my desk and called them that and asked me to stand up and show off my tattoos and purple hair and fishnets, and I mean, pick a punk stereotype, I had it. And she was all, "Look, you can get a job looking like this. A high-level job too, but just wait until you're there before getting any face tattoos." I don't have any face or neck tattoos. She didn't give me a chance to say that I went to school for all this, and worked overtime and studied, and did whatever I could to get to where I was. And I had won so many local, individual paper, state, and national awards. None of that was mentioned. I was one of the top of my field at the time, but I had purple hair and tattoos, and that's all she wanted the kids to know. Still makes me so angry. Next story. Once my manager told me I had new work coming. A week later, the work never came. So I went to ask him about it. He said that it hasn't come yet, and that my supervisor should tell me about it when it does come. Then a week after that, he came up to me and asked me why the work wasn't done. I told him that my supervisor never told me that the work has come. Then he asked me why I didn't tell him that my supervisor hadn't told me about the work. I explained how proving a negative works, and how organizational structures work, and it's not upside down. That was 30 years ago. I'm still mad about it. Whenever I see him, now a director, I think about that moment, and it just fills me with rage. I bring it up with him every 10 years or so. Next story. Drive across the state border to another state where certain fireworks, illegal here, are legal. Then he wanted me, or me to assign someone, to shoot these fireworks off at around 5 p.m. to celebrate the grand opening of our new office building. I mentioned calling the fire department for a permit, and he shut me down. I had to go begging and pleading to the VPs until I found one who would stand up to him and not make me do illegal crap. Next story. Boss in the early 90s on a business trip called my hotel room at 2 a.m. to go swimming at the hotel pool. First real business trip for me, so I met him. Pool was closed, and he was crap-eating, grinning. "What do you want to do now?" "I want to sleep. It's 2 a.m. and not in my home time zone." We never meshed, and I transferred departments. Lesson for young bankers: don't go to the pool. Next story. I worked for a daycare that had iguanas as a classroom pet. A terrible, terrible decision. One poor iguana was so malnourished it broke its leg and needed injections for the resulting abscess. I was voluntold that I would be taking care of it and learned to inject it from the vet, and would I take it home on weekends, so swim therapy in my bathtub. Eventually, I persuaded the director to let me take the iguanas to a local rescue. Next story. Asked me to write an essay for her son's college applications. Asked me to drive an employee home every day, including stopping for him to grocery shop. He was on a work visa from out of the country and didn't have a license. Same employer. I actually did the second one because it was only a few minutes from my house, and I charged her overtime and mileage. Next story. Oof. I work in IT, so I've had to go to countless executives' houses to set up or fix anything related to computers. My most memorable one was my first job out of college. My boss comes in one day with this 16-year-old kid and asks me to watch him. He tells me that his nephew is a very talented hacker and was arrested for it and is on probation. He brought in the kid to show him the positives things you can do with computers. He tells me to bring him around and show him what you do. I was a technician at the time, so pretty boring. He also tells me under no circumstances to let him use a computer. Since I was fresh out of school, I was all of 20 years old and not really up for babysitting a teenager. I drop my guard, he gets on a computer, and immediately hacks into an ISP that has offices in our building. Well, I thought I would fix this by bringing this kid to the ISP. I knew the manager there, and let him explain how he hacked them so that maybe they could fix it. The manager is kind of a loud personality. He says there is no way some kid hacked their system. This kid leans into the manager and goes, "Kid, is your admin password mumble mumble?" Manager: "Idiot!" The kid starts telling him about patches they can do, some services they can shut down, etc. All in all, it was a good exchange, I think. Also, I didn't get fired, and I don't think the kid went to jail for violating his probation, at least not that time. No idea what happened after that. Next story. I was in the military, so we did a lot of really dumb crap to keep us busy, / out of trouble, / punish us for doing stupid crap. Like, sweep the sunshine off the sidewalk, police call. Go pick up everything that's not nailed down between here and there and put it in a trash bag. Go mop the sidewalk in the rain. Go apologize to that tree for using up its oxygen. Cut the company area's grass with scissors, fingernail clippers, something dumb. Dig up a ton of dirt, put it in bags. Take those bags and put them in a cart. Take that cart to the other side of the field. Put the bags in a neat stack. Take the bags down after they are all completed. Put them in the cart. Take the cart back to where you dug the hole, and then empty the bags of dirt into the hole you made. Pack the dirt and clean out the bags. There are many other examples, but those stuck out to me for some reason. Next story. I was working for a small company, which I found out is a petty despotism. The owner asked me to deliver some chairs in my personal sedan. I told her that I didn't think that they would fit in my small car and that I wasn't comfortable putting them in there. She told another employee to shove them in my back seat, requiring the windows to be rolled down. Mind you, this was an education company, not a furniture store, so I reluctantly drove those chairs around town with the legs sticking out the window. When I came back, she said, "See, they fit!" She, of course, didn't offer to pay for my gas. During my performance review, she said that I was uncooperative and not a team player, citing my reluctance to allow her to enlist my personal car for her company delivers without compensation. Next story. I worked as the director of IT for a small startup. The CEO was a millionaire from the dot-com boom and treated employees like they were all his personal assistants. He had an exotic car collection. One day, he asked me to take pictures of the inside of one of his rare sports cars and then use Photoshop to change the interior to a different color. He was in negotiations to sell the car to a famous celebrity, who I won't divulge, and that person wanted to know what the car would look like with a different color interior, so suddenly, that was my job to handle. Next story. Write his daughter's book report for the Bridge to Terabithia because she had a swim meet. Probably not the strangest thing I've been asked to do as a personal assistant, but the one that upset me the most. I hadn't read it in years and had forgotten how sad it was, and was weeping at my desk all day while writing the report. Next story. I quit a job after a week or two. Texted the boss. I told him that this company is a crap show, and I can't keep working here. He asked me if I was still going to do the job on Monday morning because I put him in a tough spot. No, sir. I just quit. Next story. I worked office, IT, and administration at a small family construction company. This was when the early 2000 housing was just getting started. There were a lot of investors that we were coming up to come to the office for meetings. People were buying a lot of property and building spec homes with low-interest loans at the time. I'm at most of the meetings, setting up PowerPoint, billing files, that kind of thing.
Sometimes we would have kind of a cookout there during lunch. You know, invite some investors over for some burgers and talk a little business. It was a really small, family-run business kind of vibe. Well, one of our more well-off investors, an elderly woman, had her car towed and impounded about 2 hours away. Her grandson with a suspended license had borrowed it one night and gotten stopped. Somehow, I got tapped to help out and drive this woman over to pick up her car from the impound yard. I picked her up at her home. She was prepared with extra keys because the ones her grandson had been using ended up in police property. She was a very nice, easygoing lady. That changed about halfway there when she gets a phone call from the grandson at the jail. Apparently, he had spent the night in jail over this whole thing, and he's just about to get out, but his mother won't pick him up, and he wants to know if grandma can come get him. So now we've added that stop to our road trip. I'm get pick up this little delinquent at the jail, and then we've got to go to an impound lot to get her car. So off to the jail we go, after some loud arguing on the phone between them. We go to pick him up, and it turns out it's not as easy as just picking him up. Grandma also has to bail his ass out. This takes about 2 hours of sitting around, waiting for them to process him out. So she's getting pretty pissed off at this point. Once he gets out and into the car, it's non-stop screaming match with these two, and I'm just awkwardly driving down the road trying not to listen to too much of it. By the time we get to the impound yard, they have just shut down. So now we have to call a number on the sign, drive across town, and pay an even bigger fee to get the car out because it's after hours. When we finally get back to the lot, we spend another 45 minutes waiting for someone to come unlock the gate. And of course, the car has a complete dead battery because the hazard lights have been on. We have to ask the guy at the lot for a jump start. Guess what? He charged for that too. And just when I think we're about to part ways and I can go home in peace, Grandma puts $100 bill in my hand and asks me to follow her back to make sure the battery doesn't die and leave her broken down. And also wants me to have the grandson in my car for the trip home because, in her words, I can't even look at that little jerk right now. The kid didn't really speak all the way home. Awkward as hell. Next story. I researched rehab centers for the meth-addicted son of my insanely overloaded executive. I spent a few hours on it and produced a list for him with multiple options based on insurance coverage, cost, type of treatment modalities, amenities, location, etc. I'm an executive assistant, and I offered to do this for him. He had confided in me about his son before, and son's situation had gotten critical. I've worked for my executive for nearly a decade, so after some back and forth with him protesting, "You don't need to do that," I told him, "just let me take it off your plate. I'll find you the best options for the best possible outcome for son." Not so much weird as veering into territory for something that your wife would normally do, or at least work on with you. But the whole family backstory on that made it less painful for me to just take it on than try to get her involved. Next story. I was a hostess at Bennigan's back in the late 80s, and I was vegetarian. The manager insisted everyone had to try these new menu items at a staff meeting, including some kind of meatball. I told him I was vegetarian, and he demanded that I eat one or I'd be fired. I said, "Why? I don't even sell the food. I just ask, smoking or non-smoking, and put them at a table." I asked, "Can I chew it and spit it out?" He said, "Okay." So I went and handed my waiter boyfriend a meatball without explanation and asked him to chew it and spit it in a napkin. He did, and I gave a napkin full of chewed meatball to this guy. Next story. Working at my desk. Boss's voice behind me. "Does this look infected to you?" Boss was a pre-boomer, refused to use anything past Windows 3.1, and her primary work software was all still DOS in 2014, and somehow got it into her head that I was some kind of genius because I could Google.
Any possible potential health issue? She turned to me. Anything else she didn't know about anything? She asked me. I was/am a bookkeeper with an arts degree. Zero medical background beyond first aid as a Girl Guide, but I could Google. Next story. Worked for my friend's uncle during my senior year in high school, under the table, at a little grocery/deli in the industrial district. I sold beer, cigs, and adult mags to industrial worker dudes on their lunch breaks. It was super creepy, but I made several grand and ended up funding my first apartment in college with it. Next story. Right out of college, I worked as a legal secretary for a solo practitioner. He was also a functioning alcoholic. One day he came into the office beyond hungover and had me go to court for him. I was only 22 and didn't know how to say no. Luckily, the judge never called the case, so I just went back to the office. Next story. I worked at a brewery for a super long time and had various positions there. I was working in packaging when my boss asked me to take a mascot costume that was covered in mouse droppings to a dry cleaner and then overnight it to him in Washington, D.C., where he was at a beer fest, in a homemade, taped-together cardboard box-ish. It cost a ridiculous amount of money, and he didn't even bother bringing it back. I imagine he just left it in the hotel room. Surprise! Housekeeping! Next story. Was a traveling vendor for years. Was the guy who set up the merchandise tents outside Super Bowls, All-Star games, World Series games, etc. Boss asked me to throw out all of the championship stuff that was wrong. I still have a very strange collection of wrong t-shirts from Super Bowls and national championships. Next story. A division head brought her sister with her at a big regional meeting. Like, brought her to the office. The sister brought a parrot. I was told to keep the parrot in my office so the CEO won't see it shitting all over the place. Oh, and talk to him so he doesn't get lonely and he likes turkey for lunch. Next story. Not me, but my sister, 46, is an HR director for a financial firm, and her boss had her clean his home bathroom. Also note, she's the only woman in the office. Next story. I used to work night shift security at a high-end seniors home. Got a call from the head nurse in the dead of night. Apparently, a resident died, and the support nurse, who was with him, asked her to call me so I could confirm the death. She, a nurse, needed a 20-year-old security guard to confirm death, so I did. He was, in fact, dead. 2 hours later, I'm helping the head nurse dress the guy out of respect, riling him this way and that. 30 years later, I can't figure that out. Next story. We were designing and building a piece of test equipment for an electronic device. I was developing the software that ran the test routines on our system. Owner of the company asked me to provide pre-canned results after a test cycle, regardless of the actual device being tested results. This was a decade before the VW emissions scandal, but very similar. Next story. I did IT for the senior management at a company. One CEO walked me down to the office garage and asked me to put new license plates on his car. His rationale was that, as an IT guy, I had a screwdriver. Another had me change some busted light bulbs at his house because I was there, conveniently, to update some equipment. Next story. Manager's wife, not employed by the company, offered to pay me, the 21-year-old receptionist in my first post-college job, to feed her information about her husband's phone calls, placed and received, and his movements throughout the day because she was convinced he was cheating. Next story. We had a paranoid, narcissistic director at our company. His staff hated him, and the corporate office was getting complaints. He insisted I go out to the bar and grill after work. Twice I told him no, I had plans, but he insisted. Today I'd have stood my ground, but I was in my 20s then. I met him there, and he's drinking a pint of beer and asks what kind of beer I want. I felt he was trying to get me buzzed so I'd be more open to whatever it was he wanted. I didn't know what, so I ordered iced tea. He then tells me that he's the reason I still have a job, that corporate had wanted to include me in some layoffs. So I said, "Oh wow, thank you for saving my job." Then he told me he wanted me to be his eyes and ears, because his staff would congregate around my desk throughout the day. He wanted me to tell him what was being said. I told him, "I can't. That would damage my integrity." I still snicker about that. Then he insinuated he could make things difficult for me at work. I had to say, the worst thing that could happen to me is I lose my job, and in that case, I'll go get another one. His group was specialized, and there were very few options for them. I was administrative, and back then, jobs were abundant. So then he started to cry, actual tears, and say his staff hated him, then give me a list of secret things he did to help them, but that nobody knows he did these lovely things. I promised I was gonna let them know about that, and got out of there. I did let his staff know rip that he was trying to get me to spy on them as they needed to know. He eventually got fired for fighting with corporate. Other than that, being groped by my boss's husband at the dry cleaners I worked at was pretty strange, but he didn't actually ask me to do anything. It was implied, though. Next story. I sorta hear where you're coming from with this. I worked part-time at a kennel and cattery and had my normal couple of days off before returning to work as the owners were going on holiday. They left a note for me to say that a dog had died, for me to tell the owner when he comes to pick her up, and that she was in the freezer. I thought it was such a shitty thing for them to leave me with, and I knew the dog. She was a lovely Shar Pei who I swear had a sense of humor and had been coming to us for years. Yet she wasn't an old dog. I also knew the owner who I used to work with at a previous job. Still remember the dog's name. Next story. I got nothing even close to that. I got to do a few dumb tasks in the temp agency jobs I did in the summer during college, coloring in pie charts on hundreds of reports that had been printed in black and white and then stuffing them into envelopes, counting screws in a factory inventory count. 1 week of doing nothing but unstapling, photocopying, and restapling boxes and boxes of legal documentation. Next story. My boss injured himself in a motorcycle accident and couldn't use his hands. He had me forge his signature on all of the timesheets. Another time, he asked me to call the former employer of a job applicant, pretending to be him. Next story. To work overtime without pay, just to show my boss I was reliable. I should have reported him to HR, but didn't. Neither worked for free. A year later, he was fired due to another stunt involving his wife. Karma, I think? Next story. These are so great. The best I have was being told to sleep in the woods out of sight so no one could see the public works guys doing nothing. It was a summer job cutting grass, and we were all caught up. Next story. Go to the manager's mother's funeral. Completely uncalled for, and I'm sure the hospital would have issues with employees going to a funeral on the clock. I refused. Next story. During college, I was a work/study in a biology lab that ran tests on various animal samples. I'm not sure what they were actually testing for, but I got to help put elephant poop into test tube. Yes, it smelled as bad as it sounds. Next story. I was a frequent dog walker and deliver, and I also had to find a rehab for his stepdaughter, write letters from Santa to his grandkids, and order flowers for his wife on his anniversary. Next story. Someone puked in our lobby, and I had to get a cone, put it over the puke, and babysit said puke till someone trained in puke cleaning got there to clean it up. Next story. High school job in the 80s working at Jack in the Box. I had been there about 2 weeks and had only worked with the assistant manager on that night about 3 to 4 times. In the middle of after closing cleanup, she brings me into the office, puts one of those vinyl bank bags with about $5,000 in it into a food bag, and tells me to drop it in the night deposit box at the bank. And I'm pretty sure the owner expected her to do it as an assistant manager. I mean, yeah, out of the cast of characters working that night, I would have been the best choice, but I don't know how she could have known that so soon. Next story. I had a boss who used to put the screws to us for major financial contributions to buy extravagant presents for his bosses. Once one of them moved into a new house, everyone had to kick in $100 to buy him a fancy chandelier. Another time, he took up a collection to buy a very fancy high-end mountain bike for another one of his superiors. I was so happy when I left that department, and much richer. Next story. Help a professor donate their own blood for a lab experiment. It needed human blood, but because of AIDS, it was nearly impossible at the time to get shipped. Next story. I worked at a well-known restaurant in my town in the office. Places around here close in the slow season for a few days to a week to do repairs and stuff. So we come back, and the chef's cat that lived there was acting super weird. So they asked me to run the cat to the vet, which I did. The cat had been poisoned by the contractor, and I had to put it to sleep. It was awful. Next story. Had a boss call in a pretty obvious, but not stating it outright, suicide note to me. I was like 20 years old, and the only one in the building when he did it, around 10 p.m. I called his wife and by supervisor. I figured if I got fired for that, I'm okay with it. Next story. The vet froze my dog whom I had chose to not wake up from surgery due to nasty stage 4 cancer while I was away on a work trip. I was crushed, but we buried him very deep in the garden and planted flowers. Next story. I was cabinet making at the time, and I get a call from the boss asking me to go to his place. I was thinking I needed to pick up some tools, material, or something like that. Turned out I was doing a furniture removal and relocation, And my boss didn't bother to turn up to do his own removal. It was pretty rude. And then he had the gall to knock back the overtime I did that day. So I started to claw it back over a period of time with so-called overtime that I didn't do. Next story, stocking the drink cooler. I was told to stock frozen, which was next to the cooler. Only thing is, there was milk crates blocking the door stacked 5 high. I was told to climb over the crates and get into frozen. I refused because I'm clumsy, and that's an accident waiting to happen. I got fired. Next story. A naturopath had me grinding different shroom strains and making micro-dosed pills in her office for her patients. She eventually left the country. I was the marketing manager responsible for networking, community events, and developing referral partnerships. I had no business doing that illegal crap. Next story. Worked in the business office for an eye surgeon. Somebody hit a cat on the street in front of the office. The doctor came to me and said that I should go out there and get the remains off the street because it looks bad and you like animals. Next story. Gave me a list of people in our department and told me to pick the ones that he will let go. What the actual heck? This guy was a total toxic asshole who loved power tripping and got off on making others feel small. I gave him back that paper, said it was his job, and walked out of his office. I thought for sure he was going to fire me. Next story. The veterinarian I worked for asked me to x-ray his head because he couldn't hold his head on the table in the beam and step on the floor pedal. He had his jaw broken when he had his wisdom teeth pulled.